Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. Hello, everybody. It's Minutes with Mike. Mike Ryan here with my dear friend, Jess Riffle. Hello, Jess.
Hey, how are you? I've got my
Welcome to
son here
Minutes.
with me too.
Oh, yes, beautiful. I love it. I was just going to say welcome to Minutes with Mike, and I love that you have the swag available for us as well. I had met Jess, who is the Senior Manager of Social Commerce and Direct-to-Consumer at Coty. She's also the operations and marketing in the world of fine art. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I actually met her for the first time at a PIMS dinner that we hosted.
It was great.
Oh, thanks. It was a very intimate, small dinner that we invited a lot of the C-suite professionals that we want to kind of get to know a little bit better, and over dinner with conversation that was unbelievable. And I had the luck of being placed at the table directly across from Jess. And I came out of that dinner and I said, I met this wonderful woman, and the conversations we had all night with our table, with of course her leading the way with these talking points, was just stellar. So in thinking of Minutes with Mike, of course, your face and your name came into my head, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, you know what? If I wasn't having a good day before, I definitely am now. So thank you for all your kind words. Really excited to be here with you.
Tell us a little bit about your background, your education, where you grew up, and then what brought you here today.
Yeah, it's been a zigzag for sure. I grew up in Ohio on a street with no sidewalks in a town with no traffic lights. That's how small it was. And I think that if you asked someone from that time in my life to describe me, they would have said like head in the clouds or something like that. I remember one particular time in Algebra 2, I was reading Vogue instead of paying attention in class, and I got in trouble, and I told my teacher, well, like, this will probably do more for my career than Algebra 2. And I was being a brat, but I did end up being right. I really wanted to work at Vogue, and, I'd have parents or guidance counselors tell me like, oh, you should come up with a plan B because like, that's a pretty lofty goal. And I always had this sort of idea, like, no, you watch. And I did end up working at Vogue, but it definitely was a zigzag. I started college at Cleveland State, right in Cleveland, because I was 17, so I didn't want to go that far away. And it's a great school, but I started to feel a little claustrophobic, so I decided to transfer to DePaul in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 3 years. I studied around 5 times at DePaul, which was an amazing opportunity. And then I started to feel a little claustrophobic in Chicago. So that's when I moved to New York 8 years ago. I worked on the Clinton campaign. In between there, I moved back to Cleveland to do that actually. And that's a funny thing. I get to put on my resume that I worked on the Clinton campaign. But really what happened is I graduated college. I didn't have a job lined up yet. I was scared. I didn't have money. I had to move back home. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in Cleveland. What do I do? And it was a presidential election year. So, the best thing for me to do in that case was to go work on a presidential election. And then I was able to get my job lined up for January 2017 and move back to New York. But I think that a lot of us have these moments of panic, and it's like one situation for us, but you can find a way to make it look as good on paper as possible and really like make the most of it. But that was my zigzag with that. Ended up back in New York working agency side on Samsung, which was a great time. I did that for 1.5 years, but then I did finally land that job at Vogue that I told everyone I was always going to have. And I was at Condé Nast for 3.5 years. Great time. Went to TikTok after that. And then I started Coty. And also in that time, when I was at TikTok, I started grad school at Northwestern as well, which has been an amazing experience.
You should fill your time. You don't sound like you do much. That's unbelievable. Like how you get stuff done, I don't know. It's going to be a question I'm going to ask you. I might as well ask it right now. How do you find time to do things like, you're going for your master's, you are working a full-time job, you have other things going on in your life. How do you sort of set your day? How do you come across the schedule that you're going to follow?
Yeah, well, this isn't very sustainable, but I do love typing up a schedule and printing it every morning and just having that like piece of paper there to look off of. And sometimes it changes, but just setting my day really helps. And on my paper that I print out, I actually even have little like bubbles that I fill in like a standardized test to track how much water I'm drinking and to make sure that I had 3 meals that day, because that's something that I like get in a really bad habit of not doing. But when I don't do those things, I get a migraine, which takes me, out of work for a
Yeah, of
day.
course.
So it's sort of like knowing your habits, knowing your risks, mitigating those so that you can stay on track. But really, especially with grad school, I think the answer to finding more time to do things lies in the screen time app on your phone. I saw that I like spent 18 hours on TikTok one week and I was like, I could get a master's degree at that time. And now I have,
It's
it's gone very
incredible.
fast.
Yeah, I talked about this on another episode of Minutes with Mike, where I made a promise to myself I was going to cut down on that amount of screen time. And I can't believe how the minutes add up. And I can't say with any truth behind it that I'm actually cutting back. I can't get away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up at I think 5:45 this morning, but I didn't get into out of bed until 7:45 because I was on my phone. And then I was like, I feel like I could have gone on a walk, I could have started laundry. But at the same time, we have to find our ways to recover and recharge. And I don't think we should feel guilty about scrolling on our phones. It's just that when we start to feel like we're robbing ourselves of other things, like that's when it's time to claw that time back and use it for something else. But everything's about balance.
Tim's not too long ago. I mean, I've been here 35, almost 35 years, so it feels like yesterday, but there
Uh,
was a time, there was a time that we just focused strictly on press release distribution. PR and marketing back then was 2 or 3 pages typed out into an envelope, and people would just mass send it out by the thousands, right? And then the customization came along, and then somebody asked about social influencers, right? So being that senior manager of social commerce, tell me how you started getting introduced to that whole social awareness or adopting that influencers were going to be, aside from the media, a big part of this marketplace. Like, how did you grow into that, knowing that you sort of colliding at the same time with that whole beauty world?
Yeah, it's interesting. I really think this goes back to the beginning of my career. When I was in undergrad in Chicago, I had no money. So I really started working with small businesses. It started with building websites, but then I started working on social media with small businesses. I remember I was writing for a publication. It used to be called The Lala at the time. It's now part of Her Campus, but I was interviewing a small business owner and she ended up saying something about her Pinterest account. And I was like, oh, well, here, let me show you. Let me help you do that. And she's like, can I just pay you? And I was like, it's really
Yes.
easy. Let me just show you. And she's like, I really don't want to. Let me just pay you. And I felt weird. That was the first time that someone tried to pay me for something other than folding sweaters at a J. Crew. So I was a little taken aback and I didn't know like, well, what do I charge? What do I do? But I ended up taking on all of her social media accounts. And that was a small business that was sort of on a main street right outside of Chicago. So one by one, other small businesses started coming to me. I made some business cards. I made myself a website. And then before I knew it, I had a micro agency while I was in undergrad. And a lot of these clients were smaller. Once my agency got a little bigger, I folded it into a smaller agency, but more sizable, called Veteran PR. And we had a lot of clients who were like in this emerging, this is back in 2015. So think about like the health and wellness space, very like early Instagram, early Pinterest, but it was a moment and it was also like a peak influencer moment, but it was back when the influencers were all bloggers. And a lot of these clients that I had were pretty cash strapped. So while like, you're a brand, you're new on the market, you want to work with Rach Parcell, you want to work with cupcakes and cashmere, you probably can't. So what I found in our data, which is interesting because this is before micro influencers were really a thing at all, is that those smaller accounts were performing better for my clients than when they would shell out a bunch of cash working with a large influencer. So again, this was like so long ago, almost a decade ago at this point. But I think when you're looking at influencer strategies, like it's important to keep in mind that there's no one size fits all approach. It's going to be different to every business. And also every influencer is different too. And there's also seasonality, there's algorithms, there's so much that comes into account. So like if you're trying to build a good influencer marketing strategy, the best advice I have is to always just stay on top of it and know what's changing in the industry and know that it's not going to be the same 1 minute to another.
You touch on so many good points, and one of them, of course, being that our industry is a young industry, right? In its entire scope. And it feels like it changes what used to be, it took a long time in marketing and PR to get things to change. Now it almost happens overnight. Like the new thing pops up, everybody wants to get in on it, everybody wants to be a part of it. One of which is a buzzword that we hear quite a bit over at PIMS because our services are fulfillment and distribution. We have to use a fair amount of packaging materials, right? So sustainability. People want to be able to send these items. They want them to be secure. They want them to arrive on time, undamaged. They want them to have that look good and that beautiful pow and wow factor when people do those great reveals, right?
Boxings.
But at the same time, they, have to deal with the fact that they want to be known for or lead the way in sustainability. A lot of these companies are adding that as one of their core values, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about to that too, about waste and, what used to just be very haphazard back in the day, again, in warehousing, where somebody would send a small item, you'd get a whole box of peanuts or bubble
Yeah.
wrap. So on my end, that's sort of, I can talk to that all day, but maybe from your perspective, tell me how that's changed and where that you think that's going.
Yeah, so I see a lot of companies sort of launch this like recapture strategy because when you think about cosmetics, like you said, it needs to arrive in a certain state. Also, it needs to be relatively clean. So you can't necessarily be reusing packaging the same way you would for other agencies, or other industries rather. But I see TerraCycle being adopted by a lot of skincare and cosmetic companies. But I think a player that does an amazing job at this, they took it one step further is Summer Fridays. They actually have their own recycling program. So how it works is you send 5 products back that are empty. You get a
Amazing.
$25 gift card to use on their D2C. And as a marketer, I love this idea because you're not just, recapturing that packaging, engaging your consumers on the D2C site, but you're also getting research. Think about that. If I see that I have a customer A and they sent me 3 empties of the same product. And then 2 months later, they send me 3 empties of the same product again. That tells me that I need to release a bigger size, that market's there. Or if I see that I'm constantly getting back empties that aren't used all the way, they're not empty, but maybe they're just not as good anymore of one specific product, maybe it's time to introduce a smaller size. So I think you get a lot of insight by having your customers send back that product, even though that could be an expensive process. Like when I do that with Summer Fridays, they send me a shipping label and everything. I think that if you glean those insights out of there, especially if you're supporting a D2C environment where then you're also keeping your customer, I can go buy Summer Fridays at Sephora. I can get on the train and go buy it right now. But I've been buying their products from their website just because of this like really strong ecosystem that they've created that is a closed loop as well. It's not just buying, it's sending things back. So I think that that is a perfect case study of how, a beauty company can run a sustainability program.
I know you have experience because I remember you telling me a story at the Riffle home when you were growing up, how recycling was a mainstay, and there was no they. People talk more and more, certainly about recycling, but that's old hat almost compared to now. People are doing what you just said, which is reusing, right? Using
Mhm.
instead of creating a new bottle or having the effort, and sometimes it causes a little bit of waste and. To recreate or repurpose these items or break them down and create new items, they're actually using the same product containers over and over. You send
Yeah.
them back, they clean them. So
Yeah.
it's really amazing in a short time where that's come and what that speaks to.
Yeah, actually, some other good examples. Core Organics, Tata Harper will actually sell refills for their packaging as well. So instead of even buying the entire new thing, and there's also like a price incentive for the consumer to buy the refill, you just, pop in a little pot into your jar of moisturizer and you peel off the top and you're good to go again.
It's great. It's great. I wanted to talk to you certainly about this because I know at the dinner we talked a little bit about it as well. But everybody, well, I should say everybody, but our clients often come to us. We do things like custom packaging for sure. And we do fulfillment, distribution, and warehousing. But they also come to us because they want to see what's next, right? They want to see how they can get a leg up. They want to see what we can do to enhance their offering. And now it's all AI and, tying in with Chat GPT and how that's going to work. From my perspective, it's going to really enhance the customization opportunities for clients that we work with or have or potentially will work with that want to be able to send Jess Riffle a very specific shade of product or a specific size of an item, or they want it to arrive on a certain day or a certain time at a certain address. There are so many different customization points that AI is going to help us really dive deeper into that. Maybe you can tell me on your end too. Like I know you have certainly some background in that, but tell me what you think as far as AI and Chat GPT and the like. How will that sort of interface with the marketplace?
Yeah, so I have this amazing professor at Northwestern, Randy Havlick, and he just hosted a AI workshop this past Monday. We went into ChatGPT 3.5. I took a class with him last winter as well, where it was social commerce, but we spent the whole time really talking about ChatGPT and language learning models and how to train them as marketers. And his insight on this is amazing. Look him up if you don't know him. But I think that personalization is the way to go. And a company that I see doing this really well, actually, they just rolled out this product feature this week is Pinterest. I think that, when you talk about you have to talk about ethical use of AI and using AI for good. And I think Pinterest is a company that's really doing this. What they rolled out is a way to filter your search results by body type. So you're getting results that are relevant to you. Say if you're looking at like spring style inspiration, you can then go and filter by a body type that's most similar to yours. So you're getting a relevant experience. They've done the same thing with skin tones in the past. And I think that that is such a strong value proposition that also helps drive something else, which is like diversity and inclusion. So I think that leveraging AI for something that is like good for the customer in the long run is important, not just using AI to reduce cost or increase efficiencies, because that could be at the expense of the consumer. So I think keeping the consumer first will help keep you ethical in the way that you use AI, and personalizing in a way that adds value versus feeling intrusive is probably the most important way. So also give your consumers control over that AI experience. With that new AI integration on Pinterest, I'm the one clicking that drop down and selecting what I want to see versus Pinterest making assumptions about me based on data and choosing for me. I think, leave the customer in the driver's seat a little bit and provide them experiences that they can guide themselves through built on AI, but don't take the control away from them.
It's very exciting. I'm sure I speak for you as well to think of the next generation of influencers and marketers that are going to be addressing this and sort of lunging forward with all these changes in the marketplace. Is going to be amazing. I can't wait to be a part of it, but I'm very excited for what the future holds there.
Yeah.
I wanted to share with the audience too. You wear many hats, of course, that senior manager at Coty I mentioned, and the operations and marketing in the world of fine art. But also, before we get into that, I looked on your LinkedIn page. I stalked you a little bit, and I found some other things that you have some interest in, including, and you just told me before we started, the acronym for Piagua.
Piagua, putting in a good word. This is a women's networking platform that I launched last year. I will say I haven't been as leaned into it this year as I was last year, because just grad school, everything, it is hard to balance things sometimes. But basically, I thought about all of the times in my career that I could have really used a mentor. And right when I started my career, the really big thing was the wing. Everyone wanted to talk about the wing. The wing no longer exists. It got canceled, but then they ran out of money. And the thing about the wing is that it wasn't necessarily inclusive. So I wanted to create a space that was inclusive, where people could gain advice, gain insight, but also give it. And this sort of came out of all of the tech layoffs that I was seeing and how that impacted women. So I wanted to create this like closed safe networking group. It's invite only, but there is a LinkedIn group that we have for it. So go ahead and send an invite if you want to be a part of it. And we all post jobs in there, but it's sort of it's a safe space. You can say you're looking for a job. You can say you have a role open, and there's an expectation that no one is going and using that as like cocktail fodder somewhere else. But it's a really safe environment where you can also ask like, hey, I'm having a problem with my manager. Or like, hey, I just can't get started writing a bio on my resume, which also, if you are stumped on that, plug your resume into ChatGPT and ask it to write a bio for you. That's a great way to break the writer's block. So it's just it's an ecosystem, it's an environment that right now is just a LinkedIn group, but it is something that I'm looking to build out more as time goes on.
We're going to include his LinkedIn bio when this is sent out. So if you're interested in any of these things we're talking about, you can click on her link and it's listed below. That'll take you right to where you need to go.
Yeah, come find me.
Susan G. Komen Foundation. I know you volunteer there. We do a lot of stuff with Look Good, Feel Better for cancer awareness with women. And it's a wonderful organization that we're a big part of too. Lacta Cups. Lacta
Yeah.
Cups. That's a family brand, isn't it?
Family, it's in the family. So my stepmom, Diana Osorio, who I'm so close with, like I hate even putting the word step in there because like we are so close with each other. She invented this product and launched this company. She's a NICU lactation consultant. And when she was working in the NICU, she had realized how many women were basically wasting milk, and producing milk is something that a lot of women struggle with. So instead of the traditional breast pad, which then, sort of wastes the milk and is uncomfortable on top of that, she created these BPA-free shells that go in a bra and capture the milk so that those women can actually, use it for feeding. And it's also an amazing tool for women returning to work, returning to the office. Something that I've seen over the past 5 years is companies making a lot more in-office space for women who are returning to work, but I think it's still something that's really hard. It's a huge adjustment. Maternity leave is getting, lengthier at a lot of companies, but I don't think I've ever met a mom who didn't say she wished she had more time. So it's one of those products that makes going back to work a lot easier than it used to be, or as easy as it can be. And I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of what she's done. So I've always been advising on that. I think as a small business, especially after iOS 14, it's really difficult. A lot of her business used to be driven by Meta ads.
Right.
So, pivoting how to make sure your product is getting in front of people while protecting your margin. Margin is such a big deal for small businesses, especially if they're selling on Amazon. So definitely trying to give her my 2 cents wherever I can, because it's a product that I really, really believe in as well.
As a father of 4, and a bunch of my coworkers are new mothers, like it really hits home, and it's certainly a product that is needed and sounds like it really does the trick. I want you to tell me a little bit about this fine arts thing, right? You were talking about it at dinner. Again, I was completely intrigued about it, but tell me about it. I know you're involved in that. Dive into that if you would for me.
Yeah, so my partner is an artist. He's an amazing artist. He actually used to be an archivist and bag historian at Coach, which I think is so amazing, but he's painting now. And I think, one of the struggles that a lot of artists have is like, how do you have a business? And I think for a lot of artists who like thinking of it as a business sort of like feels like selling out, but producing art is expensive. And also, having time for that process versus just churning out like endless pieces to keep the lights on. It's a balance. So we more or less launched a company together to give him a platform to talk about his art and to connect with like other artists or people in the space. But also we've taken some of his pieces really intentionally and created some products that feature his art in a way to sort of have this always on strategy of income so that he can focus on creating. And we were so intentional about it. The producer of the like bags, scarves, we have some tea towels that we launched. Everything's made in Montreal out of like really high quality fabrics. Like they're paid a living wage, which that was really important to us because we didn't want to, put his art, which is something that's so meaningful to us, on products that were made in a way that like violates what we would want for ourselves. So we were really happy with selecting this producer. Our first shipments just got delivered. We checked in with everyone. We sent a personal note because
It's awesome.
I think
See,
it's
personalization. It popped in.
personalization.
Yep.
Yeah, I think something that, no one sent us a note about it, but, in selecting this producer in Montreal and everything's made to order by hand, it took a little longer than we expected. And I think in this like Amazon Prime 2-day world, everyone's like, I ordered it. Where is it? So it took about 10 days from like order to door, which used to be the norm. It's so funny like how quickly we get not used to things, but we're so excited about it. And also art is expensive. And I think that for a lot of artists, there are a lot of people who would love to support your art, but an original piece just isn't in their budget. So I think offering something that is like accessible, but still meaningful and like within the way that you want your art to be represented is important. There's a lot of artists who make TikToks and they're like, oh, the only way to be successful is to like put printables on Etsy. But I feel like you kind of like start to lose control over the process when you do that. And also another AI thing, if you're an artist, you should constantly be running your own art through Google Lens and also through Pinterest search tool to make sure that no one is infringing your copyrights or putting your art on t-shirts or leggings or anything like that. But I think that, keeping that process and oversight as close to you as possible is the best way to scale it in a meaningful way.
Jess, when Jess and I were at that dinner, we were talking about everything you can imagine, including our love for rotisserie chicken and the many different ways that we prepare them. At my house, it serves a double function. One, because I have a lot of my kids that are grown, that are still at home. Instead of preparing meals, my wife's a full-time teacher. She buys a rotisserie chicken or two at the Stop and Shop. It goes into the refrigerator and everybody kind of just grabs and pulls, right? But when it's getting down to the bare bones, I have 2 dogs too. So we boil it up. We take that broth and that chicken, not the skin, of course, and we feed it to the dogs. They love it. What about you? Tell me your world of the rotisserie chicken.
I love broth. I'm making broth all the time. We actually found this amazing stock pot at Costco. I love Costco too. That's where like my rotisserie chicken like love affair started. But this weekend we actually got a really, really great rotisserie chicken at Wegmans. I don't know if it was my first time ever at Wegmans. And now I don't know if I can go back. I was on Zillow trying to find houses close to Wegmans. That's how much I love it.
Didn't you
But
have chickens when you were a kid at your
so
house?
my neighbors across
Your
the street
neighbors,
had
right?
chickens. And when I would walk to my mailbox, sometimes if they were out, they would like charge at me. And I was kind of afraid of them. But that's their yard, that's their territory. We all have jobs, they're doing theirs. But I love rotisserie chicken. It's like a easy thing. I'm very anti-takeout. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's bad for you. Usually when I order takeout, I always regret it. So I think that rotisserie chicken is a great alternative to that. There's a store called Union Market, one train step away from me, which I love going to as well. But the first day you sort of like debone it, you eat it. However, like you said, my favorite thing to do is actually on a brioche bun. I put onion jam on one side, garlic aioli on the other, a little arugula in there, and like some Swiss cheese with the rotisserie chicken. It's great. I made those for our car ride from New York to DC over Thanksgiving because I also don't like fast food. And I ate it and I was like, this is the best sandwich I've ever had, actually. And I had never made it before. So there's so many things to do with it. But yes, I make broth afterwards. And I started posting this on Instagram and people actually asked me, they're like, what do you put in your broth? What are you doing? And then I ended up finding this little tray at S.2. There's still one in the city. It's below like Hearst Tower, but it's called Super Cubes. I think they were on Shark Tank, but it's effectively a silicone ice cube tray that you pour like soup and broth into. So
God,
I
I
bought
have
the
to get
1 cup portion one. Yeah. So I just have all these like cubes of broth in my freezer all the time. But do you know how many times that's come in handy this past month? Whenever someone's sick, I'm like, don't worry. And I bring over a huge Ziploc freezer bag of like cubes of broth. Or if you're making a recipe, like you just pull out the little cube and throw it in the pan, it's already measured. So
You and I are in that same
Childish.
world with that. I can't get enough. If I had it every day of the week, it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite things to make with it, and now we're talking about broth for so long, but I've gotten really into pastina. I think I saw,
Yes.
yeah, I think I saw like either an influencer or Pia, who I like love on Instagram, post about it. And we've been making it so much that Carlos actually even painted me a mini Barilla Pastina box. And he got a bunch of messages about that on Instagram. And then some people were even like, I thought they discontinued Pastina. And we looked into it. Or like, no, that was a different brand. Barilla still has their Pastina. So we're like the Pastina and broth authority now.
Amazing. Amazing. Jess, we always close out the minutes with Mike with a little bit of a lightning round, right? So I know I didn't prepare you for this. I didn't give you any notes on this, so it's
I'm
really
ready.
gonna come to it. It's a combination of what would you rather or what is your favorite? It's a mix of the two. So here we go.
Okay.
Just whatever's off the top of your head. Some are very easy, some you're gonna have to think for a second. What is the favorite pizza topping?
Ooh, favorite pizza topping.
You can
I
only
would
choose one.
only one. Basil.
Love that answer. Would you rather have the ability to fly or be invisible?
Be invisible.
Favorite movie?
Ooh, Marie Antoinette. I actually hosted a
Ooh.
private screening of it for my 30th birthday at Nighthawk Theater in Brooklyn.
Would you rather
Yeah,
have the power to time travel to the past, the future?
future. And then I'd buy stocks. Yes.
What is your favorite sports team? Cleveland Browns?
Ooh, no. I don't know.
No response on that one. What
I
would
like
you?
going to the US Open.
All right, close enough. Would you rather live without internet access or without air conditioning and heating?
Internet.
I know you're an extensive traveler. So, what is your favorite international destination?
Ooh, Nice, south of France, hands
Uh,
down.
never been.
It's amazing.
Last one. Would you rather have the ability to speak all languages or be able to play any musical instrument perfectly?
Speak all languages for sure. Amazing. That would be incredible. I've been trying to learn French for 15 years and I'm still going to go embarrass myself in Paris in 10 days. I would love to know all languages.
Jess Riffle, this has been informative and fascinating, and I could talk to you all day. I really appreciate you joining me. Everybody, this is somebody that you want to connect with, certainly on LinkedIn, but with all the different items that she's working on in her life, she's also gives time to share with community and help people. So again, Jess, thank you very much. Really appreciate your
Thanks for
time.
having me. Yeah, this has been great. Amazing. Thanks so much.